If you have ever wanted to make your own ironing board so you could make it be whatever size you want, watch this video because I'm going to show you step by step how to make a super easy, very simple DIY ironing board. I have been making my own ironing boards for so many years. This is the one I was currently using down here in my sewing room, and I just decided with the amount of quilts that I'm making, this size just wasn't big enough. So I measured out my table. And I like to be able to keep my iron on the board. I also like to keep my sprays and things also just on the board, but still have plenty of room to work. So I measured out my space and might cut down a piece of 1/2 inch MDF for me. So I'm gonna show you that. So I've got a 1/2 inch MDF right here that I'm going to cover. Now this ironing board is really meant to stay there. It's not gonna be portable, but you know, if you're taking your ironing board places with you, if you're going on craft retreats or whatever, something small and lightweight like this is perfect. So the big one that's going to stay put, so first I'm going to do is I'm going to cover it with aluminum foil. Now you might be asking, why are you covering it with aluminum foil? Well, because it's a foil. It's going to reflect the heat back up into your fabric that you're ironing, so you get like twice the heat. It also protects the board from the moisture coming through from your steam, iron, sprays, starches, all the things. So it's protecting your surface, plus you're getting double use of the heat that you're creating. Then I'm going to cover it with some batting. Doesn't matter what you have. I just pulled out some scraps of some batting. You don't want like a super high loft. You want a lower loft batting like this here. And then pick whatever cute fabric you want to put on top. And the only other thing you need, a staple gun and some staples. That's it.
First thing you want to do is layer your aluminum foil on your board. Now, because my board is wide, this one is 32 by 34, I'm going to have to overlap it some in the center, which is totally fine. And then you want to allow enough excess hangover to wrap it around the edges of your board. That will just secure the foil in place so that it doesn't slide around, it doesn't move anywhere. Now, you may want to use some sort of adhesive spray for this. You can totally do it. I find that the foil sticks well all on its own, but if you do want to use like a basting adhesive or something like that, that will make everything kind of stick down in place for you. So now I'm just going to smooth it out and I'm going to wrap it around the edges, just kind of like you would if you were putting aluminum foil on a pan. The other thing here, you want to make sure you put the shiny side up because that is going to reflect that heat up back into your fabric and your batting, and it's going to help that batting hold the heat while you're ironing. So make sure to go around all 4 edges, secure the foil onto the back side. You're not going to see any of this. Don't worry about it being neat and perfect or anything like that. It's all going to get covered up. Biggest thing is just smooth out the wrinkles. Make sure you have some overlap in the center. And as soon as you're done with this, we're going to move on to the batting. You want to lay your batting out on top of the board, and you want to have at least 1 inch to 2 inches of overhang around each side because you're going to fold this around to the back side, and that's how you're going to attach it all to the board. Is you're just going to wrap it around so your edges are covered, everything is covered up. Now I've got a really big piece of batting here, so I'm just going to lay it out the best I can, trim it down. Again, we are not worrying about perfection or straight lines. This is totally just an approximation. So just use your scissors, trim off your excess so you're left with enough batting to cover your board and to wrap it around to the back side of the board. Depending on how thick your batting is, you may want to do 2 layers here, which is totally fine. It's up to you. I find that 1 layer of cotton batting works just fine for me. And I am, like I said before, using a lower loft. It's not super puffy and thick. I find that these low loft battings work just fine. Now go ahead, smooth out any wrinkles that you have. Don't worry too much about them. They're all going to press out when you start ironing on this board anyway, but you want any big wrinkles or folds to be smoothed out on your board so it lays nice and flat when you put your fabric on top. I just grabbed a cute fabric that I thought would coordinate with my room, and I am hoping right here as I'm laying this out that this is going to fit. It's really, really close. I can't even believe I had enough. This just tells me it was meant to be in my sewing room. This fabric is by Lori Holt. You guys, I had already cut off the bias, so I don't know the name of it, but if you search for fabric by Lori Holt, this is one of her lines. Her lines are some of my absolute favorite. They're so cute. So I'm going to trim off the excess here, and the rest of the fabric is just enough for me to wrap around the outside edges. I'm going to smooth out those wrinkles again. Now, because my board is so big, I can tell you, it's going to be hard to get everything to lay flat when I flip it over, because now we're going to flip it to the back side to be able to staple everything on there. So again, if you're going to flip and look, see what happens, it's all folding in on itself. So go ahead, again, you might want to use some basting spray here just to temporarily hold your batting into place. So I grab my basting adhesive here. I'm just going to spray a little bit on the foil. You don't need a lot. I just need enough to kind of hold it as I flip this board over. So I'm just going to spray and then fold it back. And you don't need this in between the fabric because your fabric is going to stick to the batting naturally. It's just with that smooth foil, it just wants to slide off. And also this is because of the size of my board. When I've made smaller boards, it's a lot easier to control and flip over. If you don't want to use a spray, you could lay out your fabric and batting on your table first and then put the board on top of it that way. There's many different ways to do it. This is just the way I chose to because I've used basting spray for this in the past. It's never once been an issue for me. So again, make sure you have enough overhang on all four edges, and we're going to flip this over, and then all we have left to do is to staple it all in place. I'm just using a basic Stanley stapler with 1/4 inch staples because my board is a 1/2 inch thick. So I am starting at one end. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap all my fabric, and I'm pulling it kind of tight because you want it to be nice and smooth. You don't want there to be any wrinkles or any folds. So I start with one end first, and I get, I don't know, it depends on, how your fabric is pulling and laying. You want it to lay nice and flat. That will determine how many staples you need. I start in the middle, and then I work my way out to both corners. Now I'm going to go to the opposite end here. And I'm just turning this so you can see what I'm doing. And this is where you really want to pull nice and tight. Start in the middle, pull your batting and your fabric, staple it so it holds it securely in the middle. And then I just kind of pull and staple as I work along all of the edges here. Make sure that this entire side is stapled and secure. I go right to the corners on both ends. Those corners are going to get covered up. We're going to fold the other sides in once we get there. You may have a little bit of bulk in the corners, which you could cut out a little bit of a square. I just fold mine in towards the board, and then I fold the other side up and over to tuck that corner neatly in, secure it right away with the staple to hold everything in place. And then I go down to the other corner and do the same thing. So when you're doing the other two sides, you start in the corners, where when we did the top and bottom, we started in the middle. So once you get the sides folded in, then I go back through, start in the middle, and staple all the way towards those edges just to secure your fabric and your batting to the board. It's not going to go anywhere. Keep in mind, the more staples you use, the more staples you might have to remove if you decide to recover your board down the road. I'm doing the exact same thing here on the other side. I just turned my camera. Hopefully you can see this a little bit better. And you see how the batting is hanging out from the fabric on the one side because they're not cut exactly the same? I'm not doing anything about that. It's the bottom. It's not a big deal. Don't even worry about it. The biggest thing here is that it's nice and secure. Everything is pulled tight, so it is smooth on the other side. If there were any wrinkles in your fabric, don't sweat it because you're going to iron them out anyway. I mean, if there were big folds and creases, you want to press those out ahead of time, but just the normal wrinkles from fabric being folded are fine. I don't smooth those out ahead of time. So now you can see this is how it looks on the back side. It's stapled all the way around. I'm putting in a couple of extra just to secure it. Now we're going to put it in place. All right, you can see how small the ironing board I had in this space was. This one's going to be so much nicer, especially for making quilts, because I can move things as I need to keep them off my ironing board, but I can also use that to put my iron and my supplies on as I need to. I'm just going to slide this into place, and I'll be able to put my light back in the corner. But this is going to be so much better, especially when I get to bigger pieces and parts that I'm working on. Also, I like to, lay out my pieces as I'm pressing the seams and use my quilter's clapper. So this will give me more room to lay everything out as I need to. You guys, that's it. That's all that goes into making an ironing board that's going to fit your space just the way you want it to.
I have several of my own ironing stations that I have made for myself over the years. I haven't used a traditional ironing board in probably 15 years. I always make my own. I have a variety of sizes and things that I can take with me as I need, or if I just want to put this on my work surface, I can easily move it. This one I made custom to fit on this cart. It always stays here. I never move it, except for when I decide I want to change out my fabric and put something new on there, because it's, you know, they do get dirty, but I always just take the fabric off. I pull the staples out, take the fabric off, and I'll put a new, usually a new layer of batting on there, depending on if it's worn or not, and then new fabric. So whatever you want to do, it's great. It's so easy to do. And keep in mind, if you buy the wood at a store, like I know the Home Depot will cut it down for you to the size that you need. So if you go there and you tell them what you want, what you're doing, they will help you if you don't have a saw readily available to you, and they will cut it for you. I don't know about Lowe's, but check with your local hardware store and see if they can help you out if you can't cut it yourself. So that's it for the DIY ironing board. Thank you for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you again real soon.